Welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Sales and service open for you Monday through Saturday on location and 24/7 GreatLakesHondaCity.com. I am picture in picture with Michael Strickland here with us, the Senior Vice President of Football for the ACC. The schedules come out, and on the night the schedule was released, just like we did last season, I gave you my breakdown of this schedule, and now we're going to get to talk with the man behind the music about this 2026 schedule. Michael, how are you?
I'm great, Dan. Good morning, and appreciate you having me on today.
Absolutely, and it's my honor, my privilege, and I want to jump right into something that's been on my mind. I know the ACC, some conferences have talked about going to a 9-game conference schedule, a 3-game non-conference schedule, but because the ACC only has 17, I don't want to say only, but having an odd number of institutions at 17, not everybody can have 9. So going into your first season of a 9-game conference schedule where part of the conference is 9 and the other part of the conference is still staying at 8 conference, 4 non-conference, how are you navigating that and just trying to have the fairness amidst the fact that the ACC is going into a new era, but obviously it's not for every team all at the same time?
Great question, Dan. We spent a lot of time on that last year in the fall with our athletic directors and our head coaches and their administrators who helped them build their schedules uh, to determine who would play 9 games in 26, who wouldn't play 9 games in 26, and that was really a deep analysis of contractual obligations. It was important to us that we honored just as many of those as we possibly could. In particular, some high profile A4 non-conference matchups that we played the first game of a 2-game series.
Yeah.
And it certainly, doesn't feel right to cancel a series like that after you've played one of the games and the opponent's not had the chance, particularly the team that traveled, to get the return game, so to speak. It's tough to have to cancel any games, but we wanted to navigate this just as appropriately as we could with our non-conference partners. Once we identified ultimately the 5 teams that really it was appropriate for them to play 8 games in 26. Along that same process, we identified the one team that'll play 8 for the following 5 years. Commissioners talked about this 26 season being a transition year for us with 12 teams playing 9, but we're excited that in 27 and beyond we'll be at 16 of the 17 playing 9 and just the one playing 8, which is, as you pointed out, mathematically required. Once we identified, who was playing 8 and who was playing 9, then it's just those puzzle pieces that drop into the board. And what's important to us from a non-conference game perspective is that we try to place an odd number of those games in each week where we want to, so we get back to even. So with an odd number of teams, if at 17, if we've got one non-conference game in a particular week, that leaves 16 teams. That means you can make eight ball games up to get everybody a game that particular week. What's really important in 26 is a 1 open date season as opposed to 24 and 25 or 2 open date seasons. So in a 1 open date season, schedule makers really work their butts off to make sure that their teams don't get an open date in like week 2, for example, where you play week 1, take your one and only open date, and then have to play 11 straight games. So 8 games in a row was our marker. That was our goal. I think we got a couple teams that do play 9 in a row, but not many. And so open date placement is one of the most important things that we work on as we build the jigsaw puzzle every year.
And how were the leaders of the 17 football member institutions of the ACC in finding out that they just went to 2 open dates and had the opportunity of having 2 bye weeks, and now that's gone away and it's back to 1? How was the response for that?
Everything's been fine. Our biggest point of emphasis remains travel mitigation for coast to coast conference games. So we're sensitive to Cal and Stanford and trying to avoid no rule expressly prohibiting it, but best efforts to avoid them playing ACC road games on the East Coast in consecutive weeks. We were able to deliver that for both Cal and Stanford in the 26 schedule, and then conversely for our team, for the 14 teams that are headed west, we try our best to get them an open date after that trip but if that fails, then a home game. What we want to avoid is an East Coast team headed west and then having to travel again the following week. And we didn't get everybody an open date, to your point, because there weren't that many to distribute this year.
Yeah.
But we did get those who do play at home. And so we'll work with ESPN to try to manage the time, the game times as well. So if you play out west and you play late, but you have to play at home the following week, we'll use our best efforts for that home game to be at night, so you get as much of the day to calibrate for full prep as possible.
Yeah, and this shift to having more conference games than not, there's the hope that the College Football Playoff Committee looks to the ACC and values the ACC. And over the last few years, the ACC has had a narrative that I think has been unfair. Definitely hasn't been rooted in factual evidence of the fact of, the ACC games don't matter as much because these teams aren't as good and the conference isn't as strong. And I don't know who created the narrative and why it carried for the last 3 or 4 years, but do you have a sense that Miami making it to the national championship game and coming within one possession with 51 seconds left in the game has brought more validity to the conference and put the ACC in a place where going into a 9-game schedule in conference for most of the members, coming off of what Miami did, do you feel like the ACC is moving into a place where maybe that narrative is falling away now that we've seen what Miami has done?
Well, bowl season in total had record television ratings this year. So I'm guessing the folks who wrote or subscribed to that narrative were watching, and they saw exactly what you just talked about. Miami making their run to the national championship game, beating teams from the SEC and the Big Ten along the way. But it wasn't just Miami.
Yeah.
ACC cleaned up in bowl season with 7 Power 4 cross-conference victories, which was the most of any conference. 7-2, I think, was our P4 record across the board. So certainly you have to validate on an annual basis your strength at the top and your depth. But we had more 8-9 win teams this year than I think any season in the history of the ACC, and that bowl season performance, speaks for itself about the quality of the play in the ACC.
And then when we look at the conference championship game, we know we take the top 2 teams. This past season, Virginia was in because of their record, but they're at 7-1 in the conference. But multiple teams had a record of 6-2, and we had to go down to almost the last possible tiebreaker. Has there been anything looked at in that respect of how to kind of handle navigating through all of this if and when we run into another tiebreaker this season? And is any of that change discussed when you were putting together this 9-game schedule for a bunch of the schools?
So the schedule construction happened independent of our discussions that the commissioner has talked about publicly on a number of occasions now, that we are going to make modifications to our tiebreaker. In fact, he's mentioned to his 3 colleagues across the other A4 conferences that we're going to actually endeavor to align all 4 of our tiebreakers. They were fairly similar this past season, and obviously we have decided we want to make a change, and others agree with that. And so if we make a change, when we make a change, we're gonna work with the other 3 to see if they would be willing and be interested in making the same change. We're all playing with the exact same set of rules. A similar situation occurred actually in the SEC, where Texas A&M didn't win a tiebreaker because of their intra-conference opponents' win percentage, and so. We're talking about that with our athletic directors, and we'll certainly communicate that change prior to the start of the 26th season. But change is certainly on the way. We also know that change is on the way at the CFP, and that the winner of the 4 conference championship games at the A4 level are guaranteed automatic access starting in 2026. It's not the 5 highest ranked conference champions.
Yeah.
It's the 4 champions of the A4 conferences, and then the highest ranked team out of the group of 6 conferences.
Yeah, and so we know that change has been implemented here, which I think is obviously good news for those within the autonomy group. And I do want to get to the non-conference schedule that the ACC does have this season. 25 games against Power 4 opponents, which is the most of any league. 9 versus the SEC, 5 against the Big Ten, 5 against the Big 12, and 6 against Notre Dame. Your thoughts on that? Because obviously that's a big part of it, as well as making sure that the non-conference still has validity, it still has weight, and it still has the eyes of the CFP outside of the ACC.
Yeah, back to your merging that question with your earlier question about the narrative and such. The ACC has always played. This was my 13th season. All 13, I think you could compare our non-conference strength of schedule with any other league and said these people are stepping up and taking on all comers. With our move to 9 games, we doubled down on that and declared that it's a 10 Power Four game requirement. If you play 9 ACC opponents, you must play at least one A4 non-conference opponent, and the teams that play 8 don't get some sort of a special dispensation. They've got to play 2 Power 4 non-conference opponents, so that all 17 ACC teams are playing 10 Power 4 games. Only the ACC and the SEC have declared and enforced that level of a scheduling mandate. So we were challenged to demonstrate our stepping up from a scheduling perspective, and we've met that challenge. So now, to your point, great opportunities, 25 of them to step into that batter's box and get some high quality wins that are certainly resume enhancers. And we see that the selection committee will reward that type of behavior. Miami getting in last year because of the quality of their non-conference schedule. They took on 3 high caliber non-conference opponents, 2 from the autonomy 4 level, and won those ball games. So play them and win them, and you'll be just fine.
Yeah, and like I've said before, you got nothing to complain about if you win those games. So there's a lot to be said about that. Biggest pot, like going through, and like you said, you've been with the ACC for a bunch of years, and you've had the opportunity to work through this schedule on the football side of things. Biggest positive experience that you've had in putting together this 2026 schedule that obviously came with its own kind of differences to it. So maybe your favorite part of assembling this puzzle, and then the second piece, the most challenging part of assembling this one.
I guess I spend so much time, Dan, worrying about what I don't like about the schedule. I probably don't even know what I like most about it. It's a painstaking
Yeah.
process and attention to detail to try to get everybody everything that they've asked for. I know that's impossible, but you still do the best that you can. But I appreciate your spirit to try to be positive. First, we got all of our schools who requested a certain week to be away or open for fall break when their students are away. We got all of those requests accommodated. There were a number of venue conflicts and other requests to avoid major conflicts in town that we did really well. We didn't bat 1,000, but we got close to it. So I feel pretty good about our conversion rates there. For the ACC as a whole, I feel we feel really good about our opportunity for exposure and aggregating ratings and viewership, with our partner at ESPN. In particular, our increased point of emphasis on our ACC Friday night football package with ESPN. All but one of those games will be on ESPN. One will be on ESPN2, and we were playing on all but one Friday night throughout the course of the season. So we're really excited about increasing that number. Fewer Thursdays, more Fridays, and more high-profile Fridays. We've seen them perform extraordinarily well. I think Virginia, Florida State last year was the most watched Friday night game ever, which is saying something. We had a number of others that did extraordinarily well. So we're double-digit percentage points up on Friday night, and we want that to continue. But at the same time, we've got some key games throughout the course of the slate that can anchor us on a Saturday. As we saw last year, our ABC windows were up last year. Despite our increased investment into Friday night scheduling, our ABC Saturday windows, which are earned, not given, increased. So we feel really good about that. The angst part, we've just got a lot of travel mitigation issues that we try to accommodate, and we don't come close to batting 1,000 there. So it's frustrating when you can't get an East Coast team their open date after they travel out west, and then with the way that we schedule our having to move non-conference games throughout the schedule to manage those open dates the way that I talked about earlier. That is probably the root cause for why we've got a number of situations where teams play consecutive road games in consecutive weeks. And so we've got a few more of those than maybe some other conferences, but that's a byproduct of trying to manage the open date placement, which is really important to our players and our coaches. So it's the annual analysis of a trade-off. Is this improvement worth the new problem that you cause when you ultimately pick the final schedule?
Yeah, coming here from Michael Strickland, who took some time with us. I know you have a busy schedule inside of the ACC, putting together the schedule, Senior Vice President of Football for the ACC. And I appreciate the time as always, and always appreciate the look behind the curtain that you give and how candid you are with it, Michael. So thank you, and I look forward, as always, to be able to talk with you soon and hopefully be able to break down these things a little bit more. But I do appreciate the time.
Oh, thank you very much. We'll look forward to having you in Uptown Charlotte in July for 2026 football kickoff.
Sounds good to me.